A controversial Truck Series finish resulting in a first-time winner, the sixth closest finish in NASCAR history, and a Monday Talladega race for the ages. All today on the fifth turn. All right, everybody, welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Fifth Turn. I had to move the show to Tuesday because the race was on Monday. After being rain postponed, we had a Monday Talladega race that did not disappoint. So welcome to, I don't remember if I've ever done this before, what might be the first Tuesday edition of the Fifth Turn. So glad to have you here. Remember, as always, you can follow the show on Twitter at Fifth Turn, also on Facebook, facebook.com/thefifthturn, and send an email to thefifthturn@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me that way. Boy, oh boy, we have a lot to talk about. Again, Talladega, home of the big one. Boy, did it deliver. We had two phenomenal races this weekend that we'll get into all the action very, very soon. First bit of news that I did want to talk about, and this is the only piece of news I've got really to jump into this week. Last week, we had the first ever on-track test session for the prototype Gen 7 or next-gen car. Austin Dillon drove a very generic, non-manufacturer specific prototype of the Gen 7 car at Richmond last week, and as you can see, it's a good-looking race car. I really like what I'm seeing. Again, this is just a very rough first draft generic prototype, but you'll notice even just from this picture, it's a much closer stock look. And that's one of the things that NASCAR is going with on this car, is trying to get a car that looks much closer to stock than some of its predecessors. A couple of also interesting things to note. If you look at the wheels, we've got 18-inch wheels as opposed to the current 15. Now, I don't know if NASCAR is going to keep these particular rims or if these are just, rims that they just threw on an 18-inch wheel. Who knows? I kind of like it. I think it adds to the stock look, and it makes for a really good race car look overall. So I really like it. Also, if you've been following NASCAR rumor mills at all over the last couple of weeks, you've probably heard that NASCAR has apparently been toying with the idea of one lug nut wheels. As you can see from the picture, these wheels still have 5 lugs. Don't know if that's really going to change, but it is interesting to note that this prototype car does indeed have 5 lug nut wheels. Also, if you look on the hood, you're going to see the hood ducts, very similar to what they ran in the All-Star race earlier this year, but they've been spread out and moved to the sides of the hood so as not to disrupt sponsor logos. That was one thing that did sort of cause problems in the All-Star race, was the sponsor logos on the hood were slightly disrupted by those hood ducts, so they've moved those to the sides. Also, we've got a new splitter design, sort of this tapered design that we also did see a little bit of in the All-Star race. I really like it. I think that's gonna impact the look and the on-track product. I think you're going to see a lot of really cool things with that. Also, if you look on the rear of the car, we've got a rear diffuser. Now, I'll confess I don't know a whole lot about what that is or what it's going to do, but what I've heard is that this should really help to solve the "you can't pass with this aero package" problem. So NASCAR is really doing a lot with aero, trying to get to a point where we've got the best on-track product that we can possibly have. Also, they've redesigned the side skirts, trying to go for a more stock look. I think this is a really good race car overall, and I know they haven't even put the manufacturer-specific design on it. Just overall, I really, really like the look of this car, and I'm excited for 2021 and the future of NASCAR. I think it's a really good look, so excited to see that on track. probably beginning in the 2021 Daytona 500. NASCAR says they're still on schedule to get this thing out by 2021, so we shall see. Hey guys, just cutting in here for just a second. I know I said I only had one piece of news, but I just got this news shortly before uploading this video. We just got the official announcement from Colleague Racing that Ross Chastain, the Melon Man himself, will be full-time in the Colleague Racing Nutrien Ag Solutions number 10 Chevrolet Camaro for the Xfinity Series season next year. This is going to be awesome, chasing an Xfinity Series championship. I think he's going to have a great run. We'll be teammates with Justin Haley in the 11. I'm going to read the official statement here from Colleague Racing. Colleague Racing announced today its expansion to 2 full-time entries for the 2020 NASCAR Xfinity Series season with Ross Chastain, who will join Justin Haley. Nutrien Ag Solutions will serve as the primary sponsor for 23 races, riding along as the number 10 team competes for the 2020 NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. So this is going to be awesome. Ross Chastain going full-time with Colleague Racing. We all pretty much knew this was coming, but the official announcement just dropped a short time ago. You saw in the announcement there, 23 races. Nutrien Ag will come on as the primary sponsor, leaving 10 open races. My guess is more likely than not, I mean, Colleague Racing has other sponsors, Lee Filter Gutter Protection, Ellsworth Advisors, who was on the car for Ross's win at Daytona. So those 2 companies will probably jump on. It also wouldn't surprise me to see CarShield come over from the Truck Series. It wouldn't surprise me to see Ross run a Protect Your Melon car at Dover like he's done for the 4 and the 45 already this year. Also, wouldn't surprise me to see Melon Man brand jump on and see Ross sponsor himself for a couple of races. So exciting stuff there. I also saw, don't be surprised if Ross does continue to run a handful of races for Nice Motorsports in the 45 truck next year. It's gonna be cool. Gonna be really, really cool. So we finally know where Ross Chastain is landing next season. That takes him off the list for cars like the 37 and cars like that. So official announcement there: Ross Chastain full time in the 10 for Colleague Racing next season. Back to the main video. Moving on to the on-track action from the week. I know these shows have been getting kind of long the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to try to keep this show as close to normal length as I can. But starting for the truck race, Talladega again. Always love coming to Talladega, and trucks are always really fun to watch. And we had Matt Crafton on the pole. The defending winner of this race was actually also in the field. Timothy Peters won last year, driving the 25 for GMS Racing. This year he returned in the Nemco 87 and had a pretty good run going. The sort of one of the storylines of the entire weekend was the high line or the low line, which was going to form up and work together and get the momentum going. The high line started to form really, really well. The 98 of Grant Enfinger, the 45 of Ross Chastain, and the 8 of John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter was back in the Truck Series for this race. Then very shortly before the first caution came out, Ross Chastain had to pit. He thought he might have a tire going down. Then the 18 of Harrison Burton had a single truck spin, and it was then that we found out there was oil on the track. It wasn't actually a flat tire for Chastain. It was oil on the track. They threw the red for cleanup, which I always appreciate, so we're not just sitting there wasting laps. We had a crazy, crazy last few laps of stage 1. Ross Chastain started in the back of the pack all the way up to P3 by the end of the first stage. Unbelievable. He teamed up with John Hunter, and the two of them just shot up to the front very, very quickly. The 98 of Grant Enfinger got Ross a little squirrely at one point, I believe in stage 2. The 02 of Tyler Dipple got into an accident. The 8 of John Hunter Nemechek ended up being done for the day after an incident a few laps later. Basically, the field stacked up in front of him, and he just had nowhere to go. Plowed into the back of the 2 of Sheldon Creed, busted the radiator. John Hunter was done. He just cannot catch a break this year, and it is a real, real shame. It was a nerve-wracking race. I mean, Talladega is always a time bomb where you know something's going to happen, you just don't know when. And that was the story all weekend. It was a very nerve-wracking race. The 52 of Stuart Friesen who, again, only has one career win at Eldora earlier in the year. He won Stage 2. Chastain got shuffled at one point, sort of plummeted back through the field. Tyler Ankrum was a name that really stuck out to me all day long. It was his first ever Superspeedway start. He was too young to race at Daytona earlier in the year. And he was having a great run. I mean, he's in the playoffs, for crying out loud. He's been really impressive this year. And again, for him to come out and lead laps and be good at his first ever Superspeedway race was very, very impressive. The 52 of Stuart Friesen and the 24 of Brendan Moffitt got busted for locking bumpers. Now, this is a rule that would cause some controversy later on in the weekend because this rule only applies in the Xfinity and Truck Series. The Cup Series, this rule does not apply, and we saw locked bumpers was one of the storylines of the Cup race, and I'll get there in a few minutes when I start recapping all of the Cup Series action. But they got busted for locking bumpers and just fell way back behind the 8-ball. We had a caution for the 15 of Anthony Alfredo, another single truck incident, and then Johnny Sauter in the 13 for ThorSport got out to the lead, and man, I did not want him to win at all. I'm not a big Johnny Sauter fan at all. The last couple of years, he's proved to just be a very dirty driver. I really don't like the way that he races at all. And earlier in the race, there was a series of events where pit stops were cycling through, and the 13 of Johnny Sauter, I believe, was blocking, I want to say the 4 of Todd Gilliland, and clearly shot below the double yellow line and came back up in front of his teammate Ben Rhodes and took the lead. Made a pass below the double yellow line, which is illegal, but NASCAR did not call him for it. And he got out to the lead and was looking like he was going to win the race. And I was very angry about this because, again, it was so obvious. It was obvious enough that when I pointed something out about it on Twitter, the official Truck Series Twitter page took the GIF down that they had posted of that move. They actually deleted the GIF or the video or whatever it was after I pointed it out. Nobody said anything on the broadcast. NASCAR didn't call him for it, but it was so obvious, and I was very upset that NASCAR didn't call him for it. And he shoots out to the lead, and I did not want him to win. Then we had the big one. Nobody did anything wrong in this sequence of events. It was just typical Superspeedway racing and blocking. The 2 of Sheldon Creed made a move. The 45 of Ross Chastain, who was leading the race, went down the block. There just was not enough room for either one of them to make that particular move. And just, again, typical Superspeedway racing and blocking. This is what you do. This is what you have to do to win these races. And just set up the big one. Unfortunately, Chastain got taken out in that. And, again, just threw a block, and it just didn't work. And that was kind of the story, one of the stories of the weekend. Then we had a vicious crash shortly after that restart for the 12 of Gus Dean. It really was a flashback to Miguel Paludo in the Truck Series at Daytona a couple of years ago, where somebody spins and hits that sort of opening coming off of turn 4 in the wall, and just sort of jumped up into the air and spun around. It was a vicious crash. Again, very similar to what happened with Miguel Paludo a few years ago. And then had that final restart, and trucks were going everywhere. Chaos was ensuing. Johnny Sauter gets the win, his second of the year after winning at Dover earlier on in the year. Johnny Sauter gets his second career win, but not quite, because this was when things really got exciting. NASCAR finally got him. They finally got him. Late, but better late than never. They busted Johnny Sauter for forcing the 51 of Riley Herbst below the double yellow line. Now, the way that the double yellow line rule works, if you go down there to advance your position, you get penalized. If you force someone down there, you get penalized. They do not. And he forced the 51 of Riley Herbst below the line. Herbst backed out. Had he not have backed out, he probably would have gotten the win, but they busted Johnny Sauter, which gave the win to the guy who just so happened to finish second, Spencer Boyd, driving the 20 for Young's Motorsports. First career win. Congratulations. Right place at the right time. Got to take advantage of other people's misfortunes. That's the name of the game, especially at Superspeedway. So congratulations to Spencer Boyd and Young's Motorsports. First career win for the team, I think. What a race. And say what you will about the yellow line rule. A lot of people love it. A lot of people despise it, like viciously. Whatever you think about the rule, at least NASCAR enforced it. Because how often do we get on NASCAR, and even in this race, they didn't call Sauter on it earlier, but you got to give NASCAR credit when they do in fact enforce the rule. And so I've got to give NASCAR a lot of credit there. Let me go ahead and run through the finishing order here. Spencer Boyd takes the win. Todd Gilliland second. Riley Herbst third. Brett Moffitt fourth. Fifth is Stuart Friesen. Sixth is Austin Hill. Seventh is Tyler Ankrum. Matt Crafton eighth. Sheldon Creed ninth. Grant Enfinger 10th. 11th is Harrison Burton. 12th is Ben Rhodes. 13th is Corbin Forrester, who made a return for this race. Johnny Sauter ends up credited 14th. The way that the rule works is like a DQ would credit you with a last place finish. This particular penalty credits you as the last truck on the lead lap. So Johnny Sauter ends up credited 14th. 15th is Anthony Alfredo, Natalie Decker 16th, Brian Doza 17th, 18th Norm Benning, 19th Jesse Awuji, 20th is Gus Dean, 21st Jordan Anderson, 22nd Ross Chastain, 23rd Timothy Peters, 24th Cody Rohrbaugh, 25th Clay Greenfield, 26th Brennan Poole, 27th Jennifer Jo Cobb, Angela Ruck is 28th, 29th is Austin Wayne Self, John Hunter Nemechek 30th, 31st is Tyler Dipple, and 32nd is Mason Massey. So crazy race in the Truck Series, but the action is just getting started. And now we move on to the Cup Series race. Man, this race was so exciting. It took 2 days. Let's dive into it. Chase Elliott started on the pole. It was actually a Hendrick Motorsports 1, 2, 3, 4 in qualifying. Kyle Larson, after winning last week at Dover, the only driver who's safe coming into Talladega. Just the only driver who could go into Talladega feeling totally fine about his point situation, already locked into the next round. Richard Childress had a pretty cool thing that he did pre-race. 19 years ago today, as of today, which is Tuesday, the 15th of October, 19 years ago today, Dale Earnhardt Sr. got his final career win at Talladega in 2000. And Richard Childress took that car, that actual car, from Dale Earnhardt's 2000 Talladega win, and he took that car for a couple of pace laps around Talladega and actually got the thing up to full speed. Went 200 mile an hour for a lap with Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops riding along with him. It was a very cool, very emotional moment to see that car on track again. So kudos to Richard Childress. That was cool. Paul Menard, driver for the Wood Brothers, was experiencing some neck pains all weekend, and so he had fellow Menards driver Matt Crafton on standby, and Crafton would actually jump in at one point during this race, actually technically at 2 points. Spencer Boyd, who won the truck race, was in this field driving the 52 for Rick Ware Racing, and funny story about that, immediately after winning the truck race, he actually had to put his media availabilities on pause so he could go qualify the Cup car, and had to just take off running to get to the Cup car and get all that. The runs that these Cup cars were able to get was just unbelievably fast. Again, we pointed out the locked bumper rule does not apply in the Cup Series, and that really came into play in this race, and I'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. We've known at these Superspeedway races this year and in the last couple of years, it's all about how well can you work together with the other cars from your manufacturer. All the Chevys are going to team up, all the Fords are going to team up, all the Toyotas albeit only 7 of them in this race, are going to team up. Everybody's going to work together with their manufacturers until it gets down to the end of the race. Lots of lead changes, just jacking back and forth, side-by-side action. We had a rain approaching, and that was going to really come into play the end of Sunday. We had the first caution for incident, ironically enough, for Spencer Boyd, who was stopped on track. Paul Menard decided he was going to hop on out, and they were going to make the driver swap from Menard to Matt Crafton during the stage break. And then we saw something that we haven't really seen since 2011-2012. Guys, tandem racing is back, and it's back in a big way. And I mean, this was shades of 2011, 2012. I remember 2011 Daytona 500 when Trevor Bayne won. That race was all about the 2-car tandem. How well can you literally lock bumpers and push? And that was the story of the day. And the 2 guys that were the best at it was the 2 of Brad Keselowski and the 14 of Clint Boyer. Those 2 got hooked up. They could just get almost an unrealistic lead. We've talked about on these races, you can't get too far out there because the field is going to eat you up in a hurry. And those 2 were able to get way further out than they should have been able to and not really get eaten up until they separated. So that was just incredible. And I loved that style of racing, not just because I was a massive Trevor Bayne fan and enjoyed the fact that he got a win out of that era, but I really enjoyed tandem racing, and it was very cool to see it come back. The 20 of Eric Jones had some kind of a problem. The racing all day was just crazy. The 24, the 88, the 48, the Hendrick teammates trying to hold off the Fords. William Byron wins stage 1 in crazy fashion, barely able to hold off Joey Logano in the 22. Byron wins stage 1, second career stage win. Only other stage win for William has come at Sonoma. And then the 21 car made the driver swap. Crafton got in, and then it rained. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, to the point where NASCAR said, we're going to call it and postpone the rest of the race, the final 2 stages, to Monday. So, flash forward today, to Monday at 2 o'clock. And Wood Brothers decided to make the decision. Matt Crafton is officially going to be our driver for today. Paul Menard was still at the track, but he was really, he said he thought he could handle an impact. He was really worried about flipping, and we did actually see somebody flip, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. So Matt Crafton officially driving the 21. The 2 of Brad Keselowski took a very long time to fire. They finally got it started, but the safety truck had to push him almost all the way around the track before Brad was finally able to get the engine started. We got back to green. The Fords were just dominant, as they have so often been on these plate races, or formerly plate races, just super speedways now. But then the Chevys finally got their line formed, and boy, were they fast. Now, the ways that the Chevys were able to push each other, or maybe not, really had an impact on the racing, because the Toyotas and Fords, but especially the Fords, have a very flat front end. And so when a Ford pushes somebody, it's a very flat, very square, very effective push. The Chevy front ends are pointed, and so it's a lot harder to push somebody, and as we'll see in a few minutes, that would cause several accidents over the course of the race. Pit stops were starting to cycle through. The Chevys beat the Fords through that pit cycle, and the Hendrick guys and all of them were able to get out in front of the Stewart-Haas and Penske cars. Then we had the first big one. The 9 of Chase Elliott pushed the 88 of Alex Bowman to a huge lead. And again, as we talked about, you get too far out front, the field is going to eat you for breakfast. And sure enough, the 22 of Joey Logano, just the difference in speed was almost 10 miles an hour faster that Logano was than Bowman. And Bowman tried to move up to block, and it just didn't work. The 22 just barely hit him, but the speed difference was enough. It got the 88 squirrely. He spun down to the bottom of the track, came back up, collected a whole bunch of cars. 24 of William Byron just barely squeaked by, but this wreck took out the 88 of Alex Bowman, the 9 of Chase Elliott, the 42 of Kyle Larson, the 19 of Martin Truex Jr., 11 of Denny Hamlin, 4 of Kevin Harvick, 47 Ryan Preece, Jimmy Johnson in the 48, Kurt Busch in the 1. A whole bunch of cars got a piece of this accident. A few laps later, we had another caution, just a 2-car incident. The 43 of Bubba Wallace tried to slide in front of the 77 of Blake Jones. He just was not clear. Matt Crafton was having a really good day. He hasn't run a Cup race since the Daytona 500 in 2015 when he subbed for Kyle Busch. But he was running top 10 at a lot of different points during this race. We had a debris caution because the 19 of Martin Truex Jr., his tire exploded and there were shreds all over the track. The 9 of Chase Elliott, even after getting in that wreck earlier, rebounded and was still really, really fast, even with having possibly some suspension issues. We weren't quite sure what was going on with the 9, but had a lot of damage, but still able to rebound. Caution for the 14 of Clint Bowyer. He spun and just couldn't seem to get the car going again. The 15 of Ross Chastain got the free pass, and that was huge for him because he seemed to have really good speed. In fact, he was hanging with the lead pack so well. If he had been on the lead lap before that caution, he probably would have been about 7th or 8th on track. So he was having a really, really good day, and so many guys got taken out. That 15 was very much in contention. To use Alex Bowman's nickname for him, Slick Bill Byron takes the lead. Then we had big one number 2. And this is what I was talking about with the pointed Chevy front ends. The one of Kurt Busch gave William a huge push, and it was almost like the Chevys all kind of stacked up a little bit, and the push went wrong. Spun the 24 of William Byron into the 22 of Logano. Logano almost went up in the air. The thing hit so hard. And as the 24 was spinning, he got sideswiped again by the 51 of Austin Terrio. This crash took out the 24, the 22, Eric Jones in the 20, Matt Crafton in the 21, 41 of Daniel Suarez. Priest was in it again. Terrio, 66 of Joey Gase. We had another caution later for the 41 of Daniel Suarez getting into a spin. Then we get inside of 10 to go. And I mean, at the end of these races, you know, you're even more in a time bomb situation, and sure enough, big 1-3, and the one of Kurt Busch is right in the middle of it again. He gets his brother a big shove, but again, the Chevy pointed front end just can't push very well, and it got the 18 squirrely, and just as the 18 was starting to wiggle, the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse moved up to side draft, and the combination of those two things spun the 18 into the 62 of Brendan Gaughan. And then after another impact of Gaughan into the 95 of Matt DiBenedetto, Brendan Gaughan flips up and over the field. It almost reminded me, it was like a combination of Clint Bowyer's crash and I want to say the Bud Shootout a few years ago where he just did the one flip, and the 2012 Talladega wreck where Tony Stewart kind of flips over the field. It was kind of a combination of those two, but the 62 of Gaughan flipped over the field. This took out the 18, the 1, the 62, the 2 of Keselowski, 95, 38 of David Reagan, who had a chance to win in his last Superspeedway race. 37 of Chris Buescher was in it. 4 of Harvick, the 8 of Hemrick, 47 of Priest, again in these wrecks. Set up a 2-lap shootout. And you thought the Chevys were going to be able to work together, and they faded in a hurry. The 6 of Ryan Newman teamed up with the 11 of Denny Hamlin, and Newman just flew to the lead. It's the speed of the 11 pushing him just blasted the 6 out to the lead. And as they're sort of rounding turn 4, coming into the tri-oval, the 37 of Chris Buescher and the 96 of Parker Kligerman crash very, very hard. And the 12 of Ryan Blaney got a run. And I don't know if Newman tried to block it or if they just kind of got loose, and they sort of went almost down below the line, came back up. Blaney didn't advance his position yet, and just beating and banging to the line, and Ryan Blaney edged him by 7/1000ths of a second. I'm showing you the picture right now of this finish. Just unbelievable what these guys were able to do. 7/1000ths of a second. That's the 6th closest finish in NASCAR history. NASCAR decided that Newman forced him below the line, and again, Blaney had not yet advanced his position, so it didn't matter anyway. But Ryan Blaney wins and advances to the round of 8. Now that kind of upset the playoffs just a little bit because everyone who was below the line is now way more below the line. The 4 drivers that are currently out, all 300 cars, the 88 of Alex Bowman, the 9 of Chase Elliott, the 14 of Clint Boyer, and the 24 of William Byron, all on the outside looking in right now. Not necessarily a must-win, but you've got to look at it that way. I think Williams like 27 points back, something like that. So what a freaking race. Unbelievable. I love this aero package at Daytona and Talladega. The racing is phenomenal. And with these massive spoilers and the tapered spacers and everything NASCAR's done, it's worked really, really well. Crazy race. Loved every minute of it, albeit 2 days long and ending it on a Monday night. But what a race it was. Here's the results. Ryan Blaney takes the win. Ryan Newman second, so I guess it takes a Ryan to beat a Ryan. Denny Hamlin third. Fourth is Eric Almirola. Michael McDowell fifth. Sixth is Austin Dillon. Corey LaJoie seventh. Chase Elliott, after all of that, ends up eighth. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 9th, 10th is Ty Dillon, 11th is Joey Logano, Ross Chastain ends up 12th for Premium Motorsports, Matt Tiff 13th, Landon Castle 14th, Parker Kligerman 15th, Matt Crafton 16th, although it is credited as Paul Menard's finish. 17th is Kevin Harvick, 18th Ryan Preece, 19th Kyle Busch, 20th Chris Buescher, 21st Daniel Hemrick, 22nd Reed Sorensen, 23rd Clint Boyer, 24th Bubba Wallace, 25th Brad Keselowski, 26th Martin Truex Jr., 27th Brendan Gaughan, 28th Kurt Busch, 29th David Reagan, 30th is Matt DiBenedetto, 31st is Blake Jones, 32nd is Daniel Suarez, William Byron is 33rd, Eric Jones 34th, Austin Terrio 35th, Joey Gates 36th, Alex Bowman 37th, 38th is Jimmy Johnson, 39th is Kyle Larson, and 40th is Truck Series winner Spencer Boyd. So unbelievable racing action at Talladega. Did not disappoint. Crazy finish. I don't know that any of us could have predicted that the first 2 winners in this round would have been Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney, guys that hadn't won a race all year. These playoffs are really getting exciting, and it's really, really fun to see. So, yeah, I don't have any sleeper storylines for you this week, so that means that's about going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this Tuesday edition of the Fifth Turn. I will be back next weekend to talk about the cut race at Kansas. Gonna be interesting to see if anybody below the line can sneak a win. Obviously, you've got all 300 cars below the line right now, and obviously, the Hendrick cars have had like top 5, top 10 speed at the mile and a half this year, so would not surprise me one bit to see Alex or Chase or William or even Jimmy Johnson sneak a win at Kansas. So it's going to be a fun race. Obviously, we've known the mile and a halves have been incredible racing this year. It's going to be fun. So yeah, that's going to do it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and a comment and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at Fifth Turn, also on Facebook, facebook.com/The Fifth Turn, and send an email to thefifthturn@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me that way. I will be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. Look forward to talking about Kansas with you next week. See you guys later.